I'm doing a little bit of work this evening on this rolling block. This is a Remington 1902 improved small bore military rifle chambered in 7x57 Mauser. Very common military rifle. And I picked this up Friday, and unfortunately it had a broken firing pin. So I'll show you that. You can see the front of that firing pin is broken right off. So I made a new firing pin for it. They are available, and they're actually inexpensive. There's a couple of places that sell them for around $20, but I made one myself out of drill rod, just turned it on the lathe and made the groove and all that. There are some pictures on the communities tab of my YouTube channel. But anyway, I got that all installed. I did a rough cleanup of the rifle. I didn't do very much with it. I just took all the grease and grime and grit off of it and put the action back together. The stocks and whatnot are all still off of it. And what I want to do is I want to check and see if this primer, or excuse me, this firing pin that I made is going to put a good indentation in a primer and work properly. So it's a test. And I also kind of looking at the headspace of the rifle at the same time. So I've just got some everyday ordinary fired 7x57 Mauser brass here, and I've primed it, and then I can try that firing pin. I've got a couple of different lengths that I've selected so we can check and see what kind of, what the health of the chamber in this thing is like. I think it's just fine, but it cleaned up well in there, and I think that the measurements are going to be fine the way that the brass chambers. But let's measure the headspace on this one. Yeah, the reference is 1788, 1789 roughly. You can see there's a few nicks on the rim of this case, and that's because this has a snap over ejector and extractor. It extracts and then it ejects. So you can see it right there, and it's a rotary device that is right around the pin of this rolling block. Some of the earlier ones had a linear ejector rather than this rotary type. So it's almost like a two-stage. It comes back and it does the primary extraction, and then it will eject. So it works pretty well. And you can either put the case in all the way and then snap when you close the block here, it will snap that ejector extractor right over the rim, but that's what's chewing these up a little bit. So I found that if you just line it up, you can then close it and it doesn't snap over. So this model also has a firing pin retraction mechanism in there. There's a lever that rides inside there and cams. And so after you fire and you open the block, it actually retracts the firing pin. So everything's all nice and smooth there. It doesn't rely on it just being free. So what I want to do here is I want to check and see how things are as far as health with the chamber. So if I close this, it's in battery right now, and you can operate the rolling block. You can go down to a quarter cock position, and then everything's all locked up, and that's kind of the safe setting. But what I'm curious about, and I've already measured it a little bit with the feeler gauges, is the block has to be closed all the way and in battery in order for the hammer to come forward. You can see that the two rolling devices there will interfere if there isn't, if you had a piece of brass that was too long and the block wasn't closed all the way, obviously the hammer can't go down and it won't go into battery. So what I've been testing with this particular piece of brass, it would not go into battery on a 7/1000 feeler gauge. Let's try it again. Put it right into there. And so that's now the breech block is down on that 7/1000 feeler gauge. So now let's see if the hammer will go down. And see, it's not, there's the quarter cock. Seeing it's jammed up. It's not closed enough. So I think the chamber's pretty healthy on this. Let's go ahead and, that piece of brass is, I'd have to do some measuring to tell you what it is, but it's a random piece of fired brass. So this isn't a gauge that's telling us anything, but just everyday 7x57 fired out of something. And then let's try it with it's the same piece of brass. Let's put it back in there. And I was able to get it to go into battery sometimes on a 5/1000, depending on how aggressively I closed it. So let's close it the first time, and let's open her back up, slip that 5/1000 in there on the case head, and see if that will go. And it will not. So, it's with that random piece of brass, it's got less than 5/1000 of an inch of headspace. But if we, say we close her right up and there's your half cock, and there's your all the way down, and it's resting on the primer. So it is, that is in battery. So I think that's all pretty good. And then this next piece of brass here, this one is a little bit longer. Let's go ahead and measure this one. So this one definitely should not go into battery. This one's 1789. It's only, that's actually, it's right about the same. So there's no sense in even messing with that. So the thing that I'm curious about now is if my firing pin's going to work. So I can put on some ears here. I've got the barrel stuffed into a coffee can and towels wrapped around it to kind of make things quieter, but I'm still going to put on my hearing protection, and we'll see if this firing pin works. I'm not going to be able to see it. What I'll do is I'll do a few, and then I'll disassemble it again, take my firing pin out and inspect it and make sure. I did harden it, so everything should be okay there, but let's go ahead and this is the round that we just did, and we know that it closes on it just fine. So let's do that. I'm going to put my ears on here, and we'll see how it does. Are we ready? Here we go. And it did not fire. At least I don't think it did. Didn't sound very loud anyway. Don't see any smoke. So let's open her up. It's a pretty good primer hit. Maybe it did go and I just didn't realize it. Oh, I did. Okay. I just had good enough hearing protection on. So yeah, I did. And you can see that there is a little headspace because this hammer hits hard. See how the primer's backed out? There's no pressure to stretch the brass with just a primer. So that's where our primer has backed out a little bit because it's taken that up. So I can do a little bit more measuring. This should be on the order, and of course the brass, you can probably see there's some mark right there. It was driven into the chamber. So when I size brass for this rifle, I will size it a little bit long. So this piece of brass is a little bit shorter. Let's see if it will still fire. That's funny. I didn't think that went off because I had my headphones on and I couldn't hear anything. This is 1786. So this is about 2.5 thousandths shorter. Let's see if this one will still go. You see, this one isn't chewed up because I haven't snapped the ejector over it. So let's put this in there. Close this up. We're in battery. Put my ears back on. Okay, here we go. Now watch this thing pop out of there. That's pretty cool. Here's the smoke. Yep, and that backed out too. So even with that shorter headspace, and that's a good solid hit. I set this up with, I'm yelling because I got my headphones on. I set this up with about 55 thousandths of firing pin protrusion. So we've got 2 successful fires there. And once again, it is backed out because this brass was a little shorter, so it should be backed out a little bit more. This one, depending on how many times I measure it, this one seems a little bit longer. So let's give this a try. 1787. So no, this one is not longer. This is the middle length one. Let's go ahead and try this one. See if we get 3 firings out of it. Like I say, you can, I'll show you on that first piece that's already chewed up a little bit. See how this one's chewed up? You can push the case in there all the way and just snap it right over. But that snaps it over the rim there and kind of chews it up a little bit. So pops it out. So now here's our one that's the middle of the road. Let's go ahead and try it. Put my ears back on again. Let's go ahead and do a test of the half cock just to make sure. I've tried it. There's the half cock. So yeah, the trigger's locked up tighter than tight when we do that. So then we're back again, and there we go. Yep, looks good. So I think it's successful as far as my dimensions of my firing pin, and everything I made. Now, I don't know what the longevity is going to be. I used drill rod and turned it to diameter and did all the grinding that I need to do on it. And then I hardened it with an oil quench. So we'll see how long it lasts. But it looks like we have at least some success on our firing pin. The rest of the rifle just needs cleanup. You know, it's these were in the white. So they it never was blued. It was always in the white. You can see the barrel actually took on a lot of color. The receiver not as much. I've just more or less wiped grime off of it. You know, these things have been around a long time. I'm going to eventually have to do a little bit of work on the stock. It's developing a little crack right here that I should probably get some acrylic glass or something in to firm it up. And there is one here as well that's developing. So I think I can force some glue in there and stabilize that. I don't think that's going to need a pin or anything. It's not all the way through. I think if I clean it good with some acetone or something and then work some epoxy in there, that'll help. I may end up needing to pin this here because you can see it's, I don't know how good you can see in this video, but it's starting to get a little bit of a crack right there, and it's getting a little bit of a crack right there. I could probably very carefully send a pin through this way. I could, you know, very carefully drill in. I could even go at an angle through this, not in screen. I could go at an angle through here and you'd never see it, or I could just come in from the bottom here and pin it. But it's solid. It's not moving around. But, you know, that's the butt stock. It's got a few love carvings in it here and there. I have no idea where this rifle lived or came from. You know, they were all over. It does have some cool markings on it. It's got a J right there, which I'm not sure what that one is for. The handguard and stuff is in real good shape too. It's right here. So this is it's got a little bit of a flaking right there, but you know, it's solid. There's nothing wrong with it. And you can see there's a little bit of a crack right there that I can work some adhesive into. It's not real bad. I think I can take care of that without much problem. It's up to about right there. It only goes in about 5/8 of an inch or so. So I think I can strengthen that up and it'll be fine. And the forend looks good on it too. There's some internal stress. You know, this has a cleaning rod channel in it, and it has dried and stressed a little bit here and here. I don't think I would ever be able to pull that back together, but I think I can work some adhesive into there to stabilize it, and nobody will even know that I did anything to it. So all the parts were here. It's all correct. All the right parts. The only thing that's been wrong with it so far is the firing pin. So, you know, here's some of the other parts that I haven't cleaned up yet. I showed the tray with the pieces. Here's the middle band, needs to be cleaned up still. This is the nose cap. It was pretty grubby, you know, and then here's the front sling swivel and ring. This is a little piece that goes right in the front of the receiver that catches the cleaning rod, and it does have a cleaning rod that's in pretty good shape too. So I'll put that back together. And then here's the sight. So it's a typical 1902 sight, and you can see where it was, you know, it was in the white, and then it's gotten surface rust on it over time. So I'm just going to at first I'm just cleaning everything, getting the grime off of it. I'm not worrying so much about color or anything like that. This here is a little piece that snaps the forend on the bottom of the barrel. Here's the spring, and this is the tang screw that goes through the stock. So we'll I'll probably, you know, I've never steamed a rifle to convert it when it's in the white. I don't know if the rust that's on here is going to turn darker. I'm gonna have to do some research before I do that, because I don't want it to, you know, there's not enough rust back here for this to get real blue. The barrel would definitely, I think anyway, you can't really see the way I've got this camera mounted right now. You can't see it. I'll show it in another video. The barrel is darker, kind of like the same, little darker than the hammer even, you know, kind of along the color of this ring. I'm concerned that if I steam it and then card it out, I think it's going to turn blue. I don't think it'll get real dark, but it'll get somewhat dark. And these, I think the barrels on these were in the white. On this one, where there were things clamped, it's in the white. So I don't know what the right thing is to do to conserve the rifle that's, you know, that was never blued. So that's something I'm going to have to do some research on. But it looks to me like my firing pin was successful for at least the 3 test primers, and put this thing back together. I might shoot some light cast loads out of it before I address the woodwork and stuff, just because I'm curious about it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun once I get everything all put back together here. But I could have this rifle ready to do some test firing in an hour. It wouldn't take much time at all. But I just want to make sure that I don't harm that stock or anything where it's cracked a little bit. But I think it's solid, and I think if I was shooting cream puff loads in it, I don't think I'd have any problems. But anyway, that's what I've been up to with the firing pin on this rolling block. And thanks everybody for watching. It's no good when they're like this.